welcome to Christy Grace Scarlet Pen. I am doing something I thought I wasn't going to do, which is make a video about this. I have been watching BookTube a while now and realized that not a lot of people on BookTube read what I would choose to read if I wasn't listening to other people's thoughts on books. Which means I got caught up in a lot of other books recently, which has been good and it has been not good. But I decided that instead of I noticed I've been buying a lot of books recently over the last 6 to 9 months. But a lot of the books that have been in my shelves for a really long time, I still haven't read, and it was stupid. And so I decided to go through and read some of the books that have been there the absolute longest. I wasn't going to make any more BookTube videos ever, but I've decided to do this and see how it goes. I'm going through and picking the fantasy books that have been in my bookcase the absolute longest. So I picked 5, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I picked 5. Trying to go easy on myself because I actually don't know how much reading I'll get done. I've been in a bit of a slump recently and that's been frustrating. So I'm hoping that this picks me out of the reading slump because I'm getting to books that I've wanted to read for a really long time. Or some of them I've just totally forgotten about. So yeah, it's going to be fun, hopefully, to get through these and finally read them. So I have actually already read the first book on the list, Season of Wonder, which is a Remnants book, a series book, and it's by Lisa T. Berggren. And I actually thought it was called Remnants Season of Wonder, but it's actually called Season of Wonder in the Remnants. I think there's 3, so trilogy, I guess. Anyway, so this book was really interesting, so let me try and break this down. So the book follows main character. Her name is Andriana, Audrey, I suppose, and she is one of about, I think, 6 or so at the beginning, 4, 5, maybe like 4 or 5 people at the beginning, and it is set in a dystopian world where society has sort of ended up going backwards a little bit. Like, you know, there's not really a whole ton of modern day stuff that you've got going on. The world sort of had a big war, which like is implied to like a nuclear sort of holocaust almost, I suppose. There are these people who are called remnants, or they're knights. Been training since they were born. They randomly showed up one day, and they were born on a very specific day. I think it was like the 7th day, something or other. I don't know, can't remember. But they have been training their whole lives because they knew that when they got the call from the Maker, which is God, that they were going to fight for all of humanity and, you know, save everyone and blah, 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 etc. So the book picks up right when they have officially gotten the call. They're about 17 years old, and they are, this is technically YA, I guess, I suppose, but 17. And they go on a quest of sorts, I suppose. They officially up their powers, so they all have abilities that are the high powers. I think that that's what she called it, the high powers or high something. They meet up with a bunch of people who still believe in the way, which is what Christianity was called in the early days of the church. And so they all are going to try and free their prince, who they never met. They just know that, you know, that's what the goal is, that's what they're called for, and discover their sort of powers along the way. So what was interesting about this, and what was very, I suppose, theological about this, is that their powers aren't really like superpowers. It's not like they can fly or like whatever. They're actually just sort of gifts of the Holy Spirit, but on like steroids, I guess. So I'm one of the Christians who believe we all access gifts of the Holy Spirit today, not that they're only specifically for early church and or end of the world. I'm actually very strong belief that we operate in them today. But it was really interesting to see a world where literally nobody does. So they are going off to find the rest of their team. That's the first sort of part of their journey, I suppose. You have somebody who is a healer, somebody who is a seer, so like they see visions and they see what's coming, somebody who is someone who can discern you know, the spiritual forces, so good and bad. And then you have the main character, and Andriana, Honestly, it always trips me up. Anyway, you have a main character, Dree, who is sort of like an empath, but again, all of these are like on steroids. So like Dree ends up, you know, they're discovering their powers at a deeper level because they're finally, you know, reached the point where they're on their mission. And she sort of discovers that not only can she like feel and understand what somebody else is feeling, but she can also like see into their heart and sort of reach their memories and, you know, go really deep into their lives, and sort of really be able to connect with them through that. They're also being hunted, by like, you know, the evil forces and stuff. I can't even honestly remember what they called. To be real with you, this book did not grab my attention for a couple of reasons. So I made it through the end, but I did end up skim reading a lot of this. So the way that this was written just annoyed the crap out of me. So it is language which, let me see if I can find it. Like, the way that she describes how old they are is just obnoxious. Now, in the early hours of our decade and 7th birthday, like, that's literally how everybody's birthdays are described. Decade and 7th, or like, why? Like, what? Why? No. Unnecessary. Just say you're 17. Like, decade and 7, like, that's how they do it. Like, this, we haven't reached your 2nd decade yet. And I'm like, guys, just say 20. Like, why are we doing this? And just the way they speak is really irritating for me. Like, I know that some people love when people have like this kind of language, but it's like, we must away. And I'm like, really? Why are we talking like this? It's really irritating for me. I am not that kind of a reader. Like, I don't like that kind of fantasy where it's like, we must away. And I'm like, no. If you're going to talk like that, I don't want you to away and I don't want you to win. You're just irritating. So, not my kind of language style whatsoever. It did give me like Firefly, the TV show, Firefly vibes on how they were talking, sort of, but like way more irritating. I like Firefly, by the way. And I find that really interesting, but that just was not doing it for me. Lisa also swapped a lot between nickname and full name, and to no purpose. Like, there was no purpose for that. Like, I get, if you're gonna have characters with nicknames, and you're gonna have someone be referred to with their nickname, usually there is like a rhythm to it, and you can understand who is speaking by what name they're using. But, like, for example, like, your best friend would call you Dree, but everyone else calls you Andriana. Like, you have a love interest, he calls you Andriana, but when you start getting closer, he calls you Dree. Like, you know what I mean? Like, your enemies only call you Andriana, but everybody else calls you Dree. Like, there's systems and rhythms to, like, using nicknames. Lisa doesn't do rhythm and system. She just throws out whichever version she feels like using in that instance. There's another character, Rhaenyra, so his nickname is Nero. Really? Nero, the emperor who like oppressed everybody? Maybe that's why she kept swapping between the nickname and the real name. But then just call him the real name the whole book. I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just the way that things moved, I was bored. Like, everything was really long-winded explanation. Like, I think this book was 430 pages. Like, my explanation of this book was long-winded, but it is kind of complicated. I think all the fantasy books are always going to take longer to explain because there's like worlds and stuff. Anyway, so the one thing that I will say about this book, why I liked it, there was a relatively solid perspective on spiritual warfare in this book. Again, I feel like that's everyday life for Christians that we do now. But in terms of spiritual warfare, it particularly, because she's an empath, the main character is an empath, and because of that, it's like a very good opportunity to explain, like, you know, how to push aside negative emotions and feelings and things like that and instead focus on God and the positive emotions and the positive things that, you know, in your situation, and like choosing not to partner with darkness and whatever. And so that was really great, and I actually, for people who are struggling with that, I actually would recommend this book for that purpose, to be able to sort of get, maybe if you're struggling with reading the Bible and those things, this is relatively solid in terms of theological and biblical accuracy when engaging in spiritual warfare and like warfare of your own mind and emotions. I actually thought that was really good, well written. Books are never perfect, but yeah, I thought that was really quite good, and so I did like that part of this book. I think I gave the book 3.5 stars overall. So that was Remnants. That was the first book that I read. So the second book I am now about to read, so I think I'm only like 20 or 30 pages in so far, is called Storm Siren, and it's by Mary Weber. So this book is already a heck of a lot more fun. Honestly, I'm actually reading it properly and enjoying it, which is just hilarious. So this follows our main character, Nim. I think her full name is like something else. Nimia. Her full name is Nimia. I was gonna say there was reference to like a nymph, but so her name is Nim, and she is an elemental, which is like all the sirens outside. I'm gonna talk through the sirens, so have fun with that. So our main character Nim is an elemental, which basically means she has powers against the elements, right? Like of the elements. So for her, it is like lightning. And so she, all the babies who are born, specifically the male babies who are born and discovered to have like this elemental ability, are killed because they are deemed too dangerous to even walk on the earth. And she's a female, and it's not supposed to be possible that the females have the elemental powers, and that she's been able to live this long. And she has been a slave basically her entire life. She's been sold something like 14 times because when people discover the power that she's got, this ability, she accidentally kills people with it. And so she's quite dangerous. She doesn't think she can master it. She doesn't know what to do. Like, you know, there's really limited options for her. And she's pretty tough as nails. Like, if you've been sold 14 times into slavery again and again, like every year of your entire life since you were 6, then you would be frustrated too. Again, it's technically YA. I feel like a lot of these books are technically YA, which I find hilarious. But so she ends up getting bought at the very beginning of the book, like all this explanation for like at the very beginning, by someone who is in like the Royal High Court. She's been told that she either has to be trained to work for Kingdom of the Phelan. I'm gonna go with Phelan to pronounce that, as and learn to be trained as a weapon for them to win a war that they're going through. There's always a war, or be killed, because those are like literally her only choices. She supposedly has like, you know, this bright white hair that's really unusual, whatever, really big sign. She's an elemental, blah blah blah. And yeah, so she's got to try and now, you know, deal with this world of politics and whatever. So I have only read, like I said, like 25 pages of this book, but literally I have just read almost everything I've just described in terms of the context of the book. She's just been bought by this rich lady, and she is about to discover why she's there, in terms of like page 25. So I'm kind of excited for this book because, to be honest, like this first 25 pages have been really well written, really interesting, and yeah, just kind of get a cool glimpse into who she is and the world around her. So I'm really excited to read this book. Yeah, see you back later. Here we go. Okay, Storm Siren. I finished Storm Siren. What do I say about this book? I didn't like it. This is the second book that I have read recently that I have not liked. It is the second book in this video, and it is oodles below the first book. I gave this book 2.75 stars, but I feel like probably 2.5 is closer to the actual score for me. Alright, let's just briefly go over. So really quickly, what did I like about this book? The world is super interesting. I love like power over elements, like that's kind of really interesting. That can be really fun. Big fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So, you know, I can do element, you know, powers, superpowers. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun. I love the banter. Nim, our main character, she is just all of the spunk. I like that. Not letting life beat her down. So that made some fun conversations. But that was about it. The rest of this book just did not do it for me. Look, here's the deal. without doing spoilers, I want to try and not do spoilers, because if you want to try and read this book, it's up to you. There was too much dark, magic-y type stuff happening in this book for me. Technically Christian fiction, but it was too much for me. It was way too dark, way too much like magic type talk. I'm not a fan of that, so that was an immediate no for me. I don't like when authors give you a story, give you characters, give you something on a platter. They hand you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, okay? Not that I've ever eaten one of those because I'm from Australia, but they give you a peanut butter and a jelly sandwich. They hand it to you on a platter, you take a bite, you get used to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then all of a sudden they yank that peanut butter and jelly sandwich out of your hands and hand you a bowl of cereal. You start one plot, you start one group of characters, you just start something, and then by the end of the book, you're like, why did I even bite into that peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the first place? Because I really liked it, and then I ended up with soggy Weet-Bix. Like, you really get an idea of what a book is going to be, and when an author just rips out the rug from under you just for the sake of a plot device, no. Do better, Mary. Mary, please do better. Like, no. This book was just all kinds of no from me, and I am really disappointed because I was looking forward to it. It started off strong, did start strong, and then just everything went downhill from there. So, yeah, no. It's just a big no from me, and to be honest, I'm just kind of glad it's off of my shelf. I almost forgot, so this book has trigger warnings in it, just so you know, like child death and child abuse, slavery, that kind of stuff. It's all in here, so there's your trigger warnings. Please be careful if you want to read it, and those are things that you don't particularly enjoy. So the next book that I have picked for this video is a book, so this author, I sort of know that she does tend to have sort of more fantasy type stories, but this doesn't, I'm not sure if this is an actual fantasy story, if she wrote a different genre, but like she just usually writes them. So this is 9 by Rochelle Decker. So Rochelle Decker is the daughter of my favorite author, Ted Decker. And I have read one of her books before, The Choosing, which is the first in a trilogy. The best book, honestly. Such a good book. And if anyone is feeling like struggling with like, you know, not feeling, having insecurities and, you know, not feeling worthy or like whatever, that is the book to read. It is freaking amazing, will blow your mind, and like absolutely fill you with all of the feels. But this one is different. So this book follows Zoe Johnson, and she has, hang on. And she has spent most of her lives, you know, hiding in the shadows, not really getting, like, in the limelight, whatever. And then I think she's working at a diner, and a bedraggled teenager with no memory, that's a great word, by the way, walks in, and against her better judgment, she has been trying to outrun painful memories of her own in her past, but she does decide to help this girl who just can't remember who she is or what's going on, but she does think that there is a woman 100 miles away who'll either save them or be the last person to see them alive. This will actually probably, you know, have at least some element of fantasy in here. Now, I picked this particularly because the last few books didn't have a huge amount of success, but I know that I like Rochelle's work, so hopefully we have a winner in our hands. Hopefully we have a winner. Okay. Oh my gosh, okay. What do I say? My brain is still reeling a little. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, I almost don't know what to say about this book. Maybe I should have waited to like digest how I feel before I filmed this, but we're just gonna jump into it anyway. So, have fun. I have just finished 9 by Rochelle Decker. All the words and all of the thoughts are trapped in my own mind. I will preface this by saying all of the information that you can find about this book is so vague. And I'm not going to be vague. So I'm not going to give huge spoilers, but it's going to be semi-spoiler-ish. Because I feel like the vagueness on blurbs need to end. Like, we need to just be like, this is what the story is about. This is what you're in for. Don't just like have like a vague plot and like, oh, it piqued my interest. No, it's annoying because it means you don't actually know what the book is about until you get into the book. And sometimes that can backfire and blow up in your face. So, in order to accurately talk about this book, there will be semi-spoilers, but not like big, huge spoilers that would ruin the book experience, in my opinion. But if you genuinely don't want just to be able to explain what this book is actually about, is technically a semi-spoiler. So just, you're pre-warned. So this video had not been doing well at, this video had not been doing well. I had not been winning with the fantasy books that had been sitting in my bookshelf for a really long time. So much, like, things were like okay, but like not super amazing. I specifically picked Rochelle Decker book 9 because I know that I like her writing and I love Ted Decker, her dad's writing. So I thought it would be a good option. I was right. This book is so good. I loved this book so much. Okay. I am going to give this book a 4.5 stars. I really liked it, okay? So I think I gave like a brief description of what this book is about when I first picked it up and was telling you all about which one I was going to read. But like, here's the deal. So the blurb on the back of like, mysterious girl who's lost her memory and, you know, a waitress comes and helps her to try and find a mysterious woman that potentially will help her get her memory back and, you know, solve a big problem that she has. That is just it's almost like a red herring description, honestly. Okay, so if I was to describe this book, it sort of reminds me of like a mixture of the Jason Bourne and Divergent. If you took out the element of the factions from Divergent and you kept everything else, Divergent and Jason Bourne, that would be this book. That's the best way I could describe it. So basically, Lucy rocks up at a diner where Zoe is a waitress. Zoe has a mysterious past of her own, a very, very insane past of her own, and she is trying to, like, you know, escape that by having a normal job as a waitress and just ignoring everything. Does not trust a living soul. Nobody, you can't trust anybody. Just everyone else is just stupid. The world is awful, and so don't trust anyone, you can't trust anyone. And Lucy is like a teenager and she appears at this diner and literally cannot remember anything, which also means she doesn't know or realize when, like, you know, some people are potentially going to be taking advantage of her. She has no idea, like uber naive, because she just literally hasn't. And then Zoe gets, you know, roped into helping her. But here's the deal. If my explanation wasn't already relatively spoilerish enough, Lucy has some very specific abilities that are very difficult to come by in the world as it stands. And Zoe, I'm trying to do this with the minimal amount of spoilers that I can. And Zoe very quickly finds out that there are lots of people who are after Lucy, and, you know, they may or may not be the bad or the good guys. Lots of things are not as they seem, although, well, they are, but they're not. Yeah. There's, like, unreliable characters. Like, are you, you know, are you actually, you know, who are you? Who are you? And this is where this book actually centers around, is identity. Who are you? Are you actually who you were created to be by the stuff around you, or can you choose your own life despite what's happening in the world around you and what has happened to you? Can you choose who you are and how you respond, and can you change that? That is like the central theme. If I had to pick a theme or put a theme to this book, that would be it. I loved this book so much. Rochelle Decker, like you can tell she is her dad's daughter, like, in the best way. No, in the best way. She's her own writer. And just put that right out there. She's her own writer, but she also has like, she's just so good. It was so good. You know those books where there's like this really deep like theme and like thing that you just, you know, identity, who you are, is it rooted in love, is it rooted in what happens around you? That's such like a dense topic, and then you have like a fantasy book that literally explores that entire topic in such a beautifully done way. That's this. That's the Deckers. That's what they do apparently, because honestly, the Deckers, I love you. I love you. You're all amazing. Oh my gosh. I just can't. Oh my gosh. Okay, my thoughts are so scattered. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up because I just have to, because this is just disastrous so far. Thoughts are all over the joint. Without doing too many spoilers, there's a very limited amount of things I will say. I can continue to say. I love this book. This book was so good. 4.5 stars. I'm so happy. That last book kind of broke my brain a bit in like a good way. I love it when a fantasy book can do that, where it just like explodes your perception of something and then puts it back together. That did, you know, a little bit. But this time, we're going to pick a book. I don't know anything about this author or series or anything, and we're gonna read it because it has been there for a while. So next book on the list, let's hope we get as much luck with that one that we do in this one. And it is called Recruits by Thomas Locke. So what is this book about, you ask? I can't remember. Hang on. Okay, this book sounds so interesting. This is really interesting. This is why I bought this book, because it just sounds very interesting. Okay, so basically this book is about two twins, Sean and Dylan, and they are 18. They're just turning 18. Ow! Oh my gosh. Books hurt faces, everybody. They're just about to turn 18, and they have dreamt about another planetary world out there that they could, like, you know, if it exists and all the rest. And then they are about to find out they have very unique abilities and gifts. They can instantly transfer between worlds. And so they now have to try and prove that they are worthy of joining the, you know, planetary assembly. There is thrusting them into an interplanetary conflict that can consume the entire human race. That is giving me Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy vibes, but not, because that wasn't about it wasn't personal in that book. How stupid was that? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Regardless, I was just, yeah, so two teenagers who find out that they have powers to like transfer between like planets and worlds. That sounded fun, so why not? I better get reading because, you know, I'm tired. Hello. I have just finished Recruits by Thomas Locke, and I have mixed feelings about it. Okay, so this book is 370 pages. The first 300 pages of this book are awesome. I loved it. Like, loved the first 300 pages of this book. So good, so funny, so clever, so like interesting. You know, we're using words like the Force and the Empire, but that's okay. Just so interesting, really good. The last 70 or so pages took a turn for the creepy, and I'm not here for creepy. So for me, those first 300, you had me. I was in, I was invested, I loved it, it was good, I was happy, and then you went to creepy and I was done. Like, I was so done. I skim read the last 70 pages. Don't like creepy. I especially don't like, you know, creepy alien stuff. I'm not in for that, right? So I'm just like, you know, you're going to other worlds, so there's like, you know, other planets and stuff, so there's always a potential for alien stuff to happen, but like, you don't have to be creepy about alien stuff. You can do alien stuff where it's not creepy, and the last 70 pages went really far into the creepy place for this book. Yeah, So I'm in two minds of it because the first 300 pages, like I said, was great. Loved it. So good. But those last 70, you lost me. I'm actually finding it difficult really to rate this book. So, because that's just, I'm frustrated. I almost want to rate it the first 300 and the last 70 in two different ways. But let me just, okay, let's go over some like highlight big things. Okay, so Sean and Dylan are the two twins. We stuck with Sean the entire time. We really only got Sean's POV. I don't know what it is with me reading books about twins all of a sudden. Like, this is like the third book recently that I have read that has involved twins. I'm like, I don't know what the deal is with that. But anyway, apparently I had a lot of books about twins, and I think I even have at least one more. So strange. But anyway, I don't know what it is with twins. But anywho's, we followed Sean. So you have the two twins. Sean is a bit more intellectual. Dylan is a bit more like warrior physical. Used to have these dueling perspectives. They are both very, very close. Their home life was really, really difficult. And so they are quite bonded. They really, you know, they're twins. I mean, come on. And then they have, you know, this whole earth-shattering situation happening. I will say I found Sean was quite irritating. I'm really finding it difficult to articulate my thoughts, to be perfectly honest. But in general, I think that there was a lot of convenient things happening in this book. Too convenient for me. There was also a lot of like explanation where there wasn't necessary. Like, I didn't need you to explain how Sean came to his thought process every single time he has an interesting thought. Like, you didn't need to walk me through that mental step exercise to discovering an idea or putting pieces together. Like, I'm a human, I know how that works. I didn't need to read about people putting things together and how their brain connects the dots. I'm like, I don't need that. It was unnecessary, and it came across kind of stupid. I was like, this is just, what's the point of this? Like, it almost as well felt like, I'm like, why are you telling me this? Is this going to be important? Like, is this a clue that there's something else happening? No, it's just, he just wanted to sound clever, I guess. It's just really confusing and frustrating, and I didn't like that element of Sean's personality, like his character, I guess, the writing decision for Sean, that I'm like, he can come to things, he can, you know, put things together, put puzzle pieces together that maybe didn't fit before, like, that's great. But like, the way that you know, the author chose to write it, I just didn't appreciate, and it was just kind of like, either this author thinks I'm stupid or something else, because I'm like, well, I know how thoughts work. We don't need the play-by-play. I think the world that was explored and that was explained was really interesting, really, really cool, really great. I loved that element. I think it was really fun. The whole idea of them learning how, you know, like learning how to sew between different planets and stuff was really cool. I will say, like I said before, he did call it the Force. I'm like, MK Star Wars. But it's like, and the Empire. And I was like, okay, Star Wars, like, calm down. But I did really enjoy that and really sort of getting an insight into that. The only thing I will say, there was a few elements that they used this Force thing that I did not like and was too creepy for me, and I was like, oh, heck no, I don't want that. Let's not delve into that. But last 70 pages, we did. And so I did a lot of skim reading at the end there, but there was some really good elements to this book. Like, if I had to rate it just based on the first 300 pages, I would say it was easily a 4.5 star. It was interesting, it was engaging, it was like really entertaining. But that last 70 pages kicked it down for me, and it was like, oh, now we're creepy, now we're terrifyingly awful, and the explanations that we're given are like, that's TMI, babe, TMI. And so I'm just kind of like, yeah, I think it has to sit probably at a 3 stars because the rest of the book, majority of the book, was so good. I think I have to sit it at a 3 stars. But it was just a shame that for me personally, I don't go in for horror. I don't go in for real creepiness, and particularly alien creepy. I do not like that at all, and this is what this book gave in the last 70 or so pages. So that was really disappointing for me, and like on a personal level. There was, content warnings are things like, you know, violence and like those really creepy like horror elements, I would say, if you don't want to read stuff like that. If you love those things and those are elements that you really, really like, then go for it, babe. Go for it. You read exactly what you like. I'm really disappointed, but I don't actually know that I'll ever read this book again. I don't think I'll ever read it again because of those last 70 pages. I won't ever read this book again. And so it means I'm probably not going to keep it. All right, the next and last, I can't believe I'm saying that, book in this video. I can't believe it's already like, what, 5 books down? Probably it's because I'm in a fantasy mood. Having said that, this book might kick me off of my fantasy if I'm not careful, because it is pretty long and intense, so we'll see how we go. It's not super long, don't freak out, but for me it's relatively long, and it is called The Gifted by Matthew Dickinson. So this is book 1 in a series, the Daegmon War books. Ready? So this book is about, I have very limited knowledge about this book. This is like 430 pages. I know that doesn't sound like a whole ton, particularly for a fantasy book. It seems to be a medieval heroic romance, I guess. Okay, so basically how I have interpreted the blurb, I'm not even going to pronounce trying to pronounce these names because quite honestly, you know, whatever. But basically, the world is different. Surprise! And there is a leader, I'm assuming this lady right here, and she runs a fishing tribe. There is a big war that's happening. The baddies, I think, are probably winning at this point. There are a few among that know, that are like the gifted, and they've got these gifts of, I think, like healing and shaping, speech with creatures, knowledge, and supernatural strength in battle, but that is not really seen to be a thing anymore. Except for this woman who is leading a small amount of people. She's like, I think, the leader of a fishing tribe or something like that. It's giving me major Katara vibes from the last Airbender. But, you know, she is in charge of all of these people and has actually discovered and reignited the gifted, and recognizes that actually that still is around and potentially they can take out the baddies with all of those gifts. To me, like, my initial thoughts are, it sounds not really where I like to sit in fantasy. Like, I don't really do medieval very much. I mean, look, it could end up surprising me and being really good. For all I know, like, it could be amazing. All right, well, I guess we're gonna read this one. I will catch you up when I have gone further. We are talking about the final book in this video, which is called The Gifted by Matthew Dickinson. I have some bad news for you guys. If you're still watching, congratulations. This book, okay, it's like the entire sum of my thoughts after this video, but this book, I lasted 10 pages. I lasted 10 pages for this book. The end of chapter 1, that was it. Oh, 13, excuse me, 13 pages. But I lasted 13 pages in this book and I was done. I decided I would not read it. I am kind of sad. It's like the last book in the video. But after the first chapter, I quickly confirmed my suspicions at the start that this was not going to be a book for me. So the reasons for this. So basically the main character in this story just basically feels like a poor man's Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Without the without the water bending powers. At the end of the first chapter, you got an idea of what the Daegmon, I'm gonna guess, Daegmon, you know, what his side of things, like the evil guy, looks like, and it was so creepy. I don't understand the creepy, right? Like, you can have fantasy and have it be insane and crazy and amazing and like, oh my gosh, out of this world, without it being so creepy. Like, why is this everything so creepy? Anyway, the other side of it was I could not get past the fact that this is basically Katara. And also, on top of that, it was so dull. Like, it was boring. Like, when it wasn't creepy, it was boring. The way that things were worded and explained, I just, it's really not what I like to read. So it's just difficult already. Like, it's already like a position I'm in where I'm like, I'm willing to give it a go, but I'm not 100% sold. And yeah, it failed me. It failed me. I gave it a shot. That whole 13 pages. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I made it all the way to the end of this video. I'm gonna make this quick because if you still are here, thank you for watching all the way to the end to see what random Christian fantasy I decided to read from my bookcase. But, you know, I have lots of other videos. Go check them out. Subscribe if you want to. But otherwise, I'll see you guys in the adventures.